Huh, I can't be the only one who's ever watched something and thought, that was cool, and tried to look it up. Right? Because if you've ever asked yourself that question, then stick around for this week's episode of Watch Like a Filmmaker, where I give the names and terms to shots in our favorite movies and television shows. Plus, it's always fun to kind of share a little bit of knowledge when you're sitting with your friends and family on the couch watching some of your favorite shows. We start off with our favorite shot called the establishing shot. Technically speaking, an establishing shot is usually a wide shot or an aerial shot that shows a lot of the setting for context. Establishing shots are unlike other shots in a movie for a few different reasons, but mainly because establishing shots are usually only a few seconds long. Usually an establishing shot at the beginning of the film is going to give us a little bit of context of location. Is it in the mountains? Is it in the forest? Is it in the middle of a metropolitan area? Well, you kind of get that with the establishing shot. And also, sometimes the director will use that to set a tone. Think of a Tim Burton movie as you're beginning to watch and you start to see him add little flares to it or connections, kind of inviting you into the world through the opening credits. Now that's a little bit different than an establishing shot, but you get the idea of what I'm saying. An establishing shot is there mainly to establish context so we ourselves can connect more with what we're about to watch. And since we brought it up, we might as well discuss a wide shot. A wide shot is a shot that typically shows the entire subject and is intended to place it in some relation to its surroundings. So if you look at an establishing shot as more of a where, when, setting the tone, and establishing where the movie's taking place, you can look at the wide shot as more of a smaller segment, where we can kind of show where the character is at in relation to everything around it. When you're thinking of a wide shot, you might consider the main character looking far off in the distance at the destination and journey ahead, maybe the mountaintop they have to climb and how far it is, and letting us know that the character is going to have a journey that we're going to be going along with. Or you might consider the wide shot as something more isolating and alone, depending on the tone of the film. When you see a character surrounded by nothing or just alone in that wide frame, you feel a sense of something. Loneliness, separation. So a wide shot has many different uses. Tiny note, and I feel like this goes without saying, but a wide shot is usually done with a wide angle lens. But let's continue. And if we're talking about a wide shot, we can also talk about a close-up, which is usually taken at close range and showing the subject on a larger scale, or something more intimate and detailed. Whereas a wide shot can show you where the character is in its surroundings, or maybe even how the character feels, isolated or a part of the crowd, a close-up is where we can get a little bit more intimate. Now, and I also feel, as a side note, a close-up is kind of where maybe theater acting and film acting separates itself. We'll get into that in another time though. Because in a close-up, a character's tear can be seen. And at a close range, you can tell if this is a happy tear, or a sad tear, or a tear of relief. Or even further, when you move down to the pocket, and maybe a movie with sleight of hand, the close-up is a great way to show us what's going on without showing any of the characters. That way we can feel one step ahead, or it can lead us to a mystery in itself when we next see that pocket and nothing is there. And close-up has a lot of range and a lot of tricks up its sleeve when used correctly. But again, the definition is usually just a close-up on the subject. A medium close-up somewhere between a medium shot and a close-up. But it does vary from the close-up, whereas the close-up will show us that tear, the medium shot gives us a little bit more information and allows a little bit more in the frame. Usually where a subject is framed from just above their head until the middle of their torso. See, technically I shoot my YouTube videos in a medium close-up. Somewhere a little bit above my head and just about my torso to keep us here in the context of what I'm doing and explain to you. But let's continue. Wow, it's that time already? Halfway through the video. Thank you guys very much for joining me this week on Watch Like a Filmmaker, and thank you for making it this far. I appreciate the fact that you are interested in this kind of stuff because I really like talking about it and it's kind of a big deal to me, so thank you. But if you guys have a question about any of the shots I just mentioned or the shots we're going to be talking about the rest of this episode, please let me know in the comments below, and that way I can kind of interact and let you know a little bit more or help create new videos that talk about shots. It's kind of an interesting topic and it can go a lot of ways, especially if you're a new content creator kind of exploring different ways to tell your story. But like I said, we're halfway through the episode, so let's continue, because up next is the tracking shot, which honestly is any shot where the camera physically moves sideways, forward, or backward through a scene. Now, the tracking shots usually last longer than other shots because they're following one or more subjects, but it allows us to be a little bit more immersed as the audience in a particular setting or scene. So if we have our establishing shot to establish where we're at, the tracking shot might be a great way to follow your characters through a scene. and has typically done so. Maybe you're watching them go through the crowd as they explain an intense dialogue, but we want to keep the pace going. We want to keep things moving. Or maybe we finally made it to the shot where there's a dreaded long hallway and the character has to walk slowly down there as they're contemplating everything that's happened in the movie previously and the next steps ahead of them. That tracking shot is a great tool to show that long span of time and the deep moments and maybe a little bit of feeling for the character, and we're right there with them. So I've always considered a tracking shot to be a special tool at the filmmaker's disposal, especially when telling a story, because not only are you right there with the character, but as an audience member, it keeps things a little bit more visually appealing because things are moving. There's things to interact with and see. This is a visual medium after all. So if a tracking shot is a moving shot, then taking that a step forward, I'd have to let you guys know, typically a tracking shot is moving left to right, whereas a dolly shot is moving backward and forward, or forward and backward, depending on how this is with the camera. So that kind of takes it a step forward and breaks it down. So although, like I said, tracking is a moving shot, a tracking shot usually left to right, dolly forward and back, where the dolly shot shows a little bit more depth. Oh my God. How long's my cat been back there? Have I been in the whole thing? Have you been in the whole thing? Okay, I'm done. Why do we love cats? It makes no sense. And if we're talking about moving shots, there's no way we can forget the crane shot, which is pretty easy by name, but is achieved by a camera mounted on a platform, which is then connected to a mechanical arm, or crane, which of course, once connected, allows the camera to move in any direction, up, down, left, right, backwards, or forwards. A crane shot you might better recognize from maybe some of your favorite behind the scenes or bonus featurettes when you're watching some of your favorite movies, and you usually see that crane right there with a platform and then like a DP or a camera operator in it, and they're rising above or down, which is kind of a cool thing to see and a cool thing to be a part of. Now, I've also worked on smaller sets where a drone was used instead, where a drone was brought up and then dramatically close, or low and then brought dramatically high, in an effort to create that crane shot. So it becomes a little more aerial, but I have seen it work. So let's review what we've discussed. We have an establishing shot, which is going to establish the setting or the location of where we're at and give us a sense of direction. We have a close-up, which takes things a little bit more intimately in with the character, maybe so we can feel what they're feeling, or learn something a little bit different or see something a little bit closer so that we can be aware with the character but others cannot in the scene. We've also talked about a medium close, which is kind of what we're doing right now. Then we have our moving shots, where a tracking shot will move left to right, or just moving in the scene. And then we have the dolly, showing depth, moving back and forward. And then lastly, the crane, taking a high angle shot to a low angle shot, quickly, or vice versa. And as a bonus before we end the video, let's break down and create a shot list. No. Not that kind of shot. What? Now, a shot list can be its own video entirely, and probably will be in the future as we continue with Watch Like a Filmmaker. But for this, basically, a general idea is picture a shot list as a checklist of different shots we need for a scene. So let's say we're at a police precinct. Maybe we're in a crime drama. Okay? So if we're at a police precinct, a great way to remember some of the stuff we've reviewed is an establishing shot would be to show that we're at a police precinct. Taking it a little bit further, the police precinct, we might start off with in the city. We might see the shot of the city as an establishing shot to show that we're in a major metropolitan area. Then another establishing shot to show that we're actually at the police precinct. And then our moving shots will get us through the precinct, tracking our dolly, as we get through to our main characters. Now our main characters, we will continue with a medium as we continue their conversation, bouncing over the shoulders and medium shots, till finally we get our gridded close-up as the detective gets some bad news about the case. And that brings us to the end of another episode of Watch Like a Filmmaker, as we've broken down a couple different shots, or at least a couple main shots, so now you can impress your friends and family talking about the shots you see in the movies, TV shows, and content you watch. And if you'd like, try some yourself, using maybe even that concept we just discussed at the police precinct. Take that a little bit further and go into another direction to create your scene and your next shot list, which I know we haven't discussed a whole lot of, but we'll go into in another episode. So for now, Thank you guys so much for watching. Please remember to like, comment, and subscribe. And please let me know in the comments below what you liked about this video or if there's anything else you'd like to see in the upcoming episodes. I look forward to that feedback as I continue, and I'd really love to talk a little bit about not only things that I love to discuss, but things you'd like to talk about as well. So, again, my name is Christopher. I am the theFitDirector. This has been another episode of Watch Like a Filmmaker, and I will see you next week in a new episode. Bye.